The two boys, Aidan and Riley, our friends, were just entering their teenage years, and they travel the world with their parents every year and always share their adventures with us when we meet in our mountain paradise in the summers. They show us their paintings. They read us their journals. And so we have a fine old time holding our noses in the Galapagos. I didn't know it was smelly, but the boys insist it really is. Lurching down the Amazon with the alligators and things like that, you know. Imitating the penguins in the Antarctic. They go all over the world. But this year they were going to Paris. And knowing how I love the city, they said, well, Barbara, what should we do when we go there? I said, oh boy, I can't write a guidebook, but I can tell you something about the heart of the city. As I said that, everybody just burst out laughing. The boys, Judah, and myself. And even the raven who was sitting in the tree gave a great guffaw, you know. It was just ridiculous. The heart of Paris, you know. There must be a different one for everyone who searches for it, of course. Anyway. But, so I wondered, you know, could there even be such a thing? And yet I felt I had to try to capture and explain just what I think that heart may be. And it wasn't as easy as I thought. My first time in Paris with Judah in 1953. We go straight to Shakespeare and Company, and George Whitman lifts his head from his book, gets up from the desk, rubbing his eyes, you know, they're always red, and says, courteous as a prince, would you like a glass of wine? And then he says, you know, there's a reading tonight at 7 o'clock, and you'll be welcome. And I just thought, this is heaven. It's better than I imagined. You know, because I'm thinking of Sylvia Beach and Hemingway and, you know, and so on. And James Joyce. And readings of earth-shaking works and so on. And here was George Whitman, nephew of the great American poet, still following the hallowed traditions of the great-hearted Sylvia Beach. It's pretty wonderful. And so in the tiny back room, you know, lined with couches, we drink Plonk, but it's French Plonk. It's not gooey duck, you know. And we listen to the writers read. And that's where, for instance, Richard Wright read his angry heart out to us. And so it was still, English-speaking people really did go to Shakespeare and Company, and the writers really did go there, and they really read. I don't know if it's still, I don't think it still quite happens like that. Maybe it's moved now to the Village Voice. But anyway, George introduces us to a guy by the name of Jean-Pierre Legault from Barbados, a painter. And Jean-Pierre is going to have a show around the corner, just around the corner from the bookshop. And we like him. We like Legault, and we like his work. And so talking it over at one of the evening colloquies, we decide that Judah will help him hang this stuff, and I'm going to find him people to come to the show. Who do I know in Paris? You know, a few people who came with us on the boat. The Mauritania, by the way, guys, I'm talking 100 years ago, you know. And that was a boat. You know that it was teak even in third class? Stem to stern. Anyway, I said, I need a who's who in Paris. So I go to the American Embassy, the library of the American Embassy, and write out about 100 invitations. And some of the guys come too, asking us in French that we pretend not to understand. Where did you get my name? So, it was very fun. So anyway, I'm swimming around trying to define how my experience partakes of this lasting center when I receive a card from Riley. It's the raven. I keep it on my desk to this day. You know, he's a little boy. He writes me this beautiful card with the raven. And that reminds me that these boys are painters, both of them. And they always paint. They always record their feelings in paint or crayon or whatever it is. And that is sort of how they record their experience. Maybe some painters of Paris might lead them to their own central adventures, I say to myself, and help them find their own heart of Paris. So I begin to explore the lives of the painters I most associate with the city. And here's what I find. In the late 1800s, a handful of painters turned the Paris art scene into a real roller coaster. Every few years they make a revolution in art. You know, in 50 years, in much less than 50 years, there were 5 different, completely big changes. You know, starting with the Impressionists rising from dark shadow, sorts of thing, and boldly adding bright color against a brilliant sky, dazzling everyone with their play on light. And almost at once, the Post-Impressionists and then the Fauves swirl on color in ways that no one had dreamed of before. And then the Cubists make a complete about turn. They dull color. They use brown and gray, you know, because they want to look at the form and they want to see depth without using perspective. You know? And finally, the surrealists shoot down the hill at breakneck speed, trying to show us our very dreams, our very heart, our gut.
So Barbara, say that again. The Impressionists, the
Cubist.
The Impressionists and Post-Impressionists, like Van Gogh, for instance, and Seurat.
Yeah.
And then the Fauves, a little later, and then the Cubists, and then the Surrealists. Yeah. And so, and of course, you know, we're talking about great guys here. These are not ordinary, everyday weekend painters. Matisse, Cézanne, Manet, Morisot, and so forth. You know who they are. Hardly any of them are born in Paris. They come from everywhere to study, to find teachers and friends, and to find their own way and build their own revolutions in painting. And I think they changed how we see the world. And they did over and over. And I do believe that they are part of our fascination for the city of Paris. And it's because of them that just the name of the city makes you think of an artist who is devoting herself to her vision, no matter how unpopular, you know, and is going to stick with it. So we're going to trace the sort of start of a thrilling story, how Paris formed these students in art, brought many of them together in friendship, and how in her studios and garrets and theaters and cafes, they found their ways to see the world and to portray it anew. And as we meet these few artists, and it's only an intro, I'm not pretending to give you an in-depth look, but we're going to take a look at some of the resources of the city that helped them achieve their own greatness. And it took me ages, but I finally found a structure for this book that helps us explore this interrelationship, I think. So we're going to meet a few Impressionists. Then we're going to look at a few of the resources in the city that they in particular used. And the Post-Impressionists will call up other riches and so on. So we're going to look at the Impressionists together. And for the rest, you can glance at copies of the book that I'll hand out. Now, I have 3 introductory characters in this book. Our own Joseph Plaskett, who frees himself from abstract expressionism that wins him critical acclaim in New York, but he goes to Paris when he finds out that he is not an abstract expressionist. He is and must be a representational painter. That's all it is. The artist in wonderment before the world, he called one of his paintings. That's really it. And so, and he loved Hans Hofmann, who was his teacher. He respected him deeply, but he just couldn't do it. And why did he go to Paris? Because somehow or other, he felt that the city would allow him to say, yeah, abstract expressionism may be the flavor of the month, but I'm not going to do it because it's not my flavor, you know? The second guy that I sort of look at in the beginning of this book is Manet. He's not an impressionist, he's the opposite of an impressionist because he lights his characters from face on, you know, and they always like the side, like he uses black all over the place and they never touch it, they don't go near it. But they met and they loved each other. And he was a little older. He was a very well-off, very cultured man.
Oh, so who met?
Manet. Oh, he met. Well, Degas, of course, was part of his social strata, but Monet and Renoir and Cézanne for sure. You know, those guys from the much lower class, the great unwashed, and you know, poor people. But anyway, so Manet was a well-educated, cultured man. He really knew his way around the Paris art scene, and he was quite happy to assist his more provincial colleagues. So we're going to begin with Manet, his famous impression Sunrise, which can